Emiru versus Mizkif. There are giant allegations, some of which could be criminal, as we investigate this streamer-on-streamer battle. Of course, Legal Mindset, we teach you to be your own judge. I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney. This is the Fast Facts version of the latest in legal news. If you like the Fast Facts, if you like the format, make sure to like the video and leave a comment below. So let's jump right into it today with this, which is a highly requested topic with massive legal implications. Could be the streaming court case that I think might even go beyond the Ethan Klein versus Frogan and Denims and Casey Tron, although that's a pretty crazy one as well. But this one is more personal in nature, and I think that's what makes it so interesting and so fascinating, albeit in a unfortunate way. So let me start with some disclaimers, of course, in my PP, my PowerPoint. First of all, I do not know these people. One of the fortunate things about being outside of the streamer bubble, which I pretty much define as the American streamers that pretty much all hang out together. They're all doing house parties. They're going out and meeting each other. There's advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantages, of course, you don't know what's going on. You don't know what people are doing. You're not listening to, the latest tips and tricks, etc. But at the same time, right? And this is the important point here, you're removed from the drama and you're protected from it. I would not want to be at one of these alleged parties or events, etc., and have seen these things going down. That's just a giant liability. And to me, hearing what these things going down is a great example of why you should not date people that are effectively your coworkers. And in this very case, we're going to deal with, what can be intercompany drama, intercompany issues here. And one other thing that kind of popped out to me as a disclaimer is that streamers are kind of weird in the way that they operate and the way that they manage their relationships and the way that they deal with their interpersonal stuff. Now, I know that Emiru and others have said, hey, this isn't stuff they would bring up online. Private life should be private. And I very much agree with that. But airing out all of your dirty laundry of your relationship live for millions to see is just not really the way to go. And I think, looking at this, for all those that are wondering, hey, I want to become a streamer, you might want to think again, because there are various tolls, whether it's on your personal life, as you see here, relationships, mental health. There's a lot of things. Stress, I can speak to that. I've been very, very stressed out lately because it's a lot of pressure mentally, right? Not physically. It's not construction, right? It's not the hardest job physically ever. No, but there's a lot of mental pressure. There's a lot of social pressure, and that is very, very much true. But I will say one other thing as a disclaimer. I am going to focus on the law, as always, and focus on the, legal issues here at hand. But as a non-legal observer, taking off my handsome lawyer hat for a second, right? Mudang's wearing the hat right now. But we're taking off the hat. And we're, as just a human being who watched this, I do not find Mizkif to be very credible. His story is not looking good. It is at a disadvantage. Now, I cannot say with certainty, absent proof in court or other hard evidence, who is guilty, who is not guilty, etc. But all of the factors right now favor Emiru. Emmy looks much more credible. Her presentation was much more credible. She seemed genuinely distraught versus Mizkif, who really only seemed distraught at the fact that this is going to ruin his career. He did not seem genuinely troubled by this on a deep sense. Both of them need to be speaking to lawyers. I do think Emmy is doing that. I'm not sure about Mizkif, although I'm sure he's thinking about it now. If he's hatching all these crazy plans like using rabbits as blackmail material, I'm sure he's spoken to a lawyer at some point. I don't think a lawyer reviewed his statement. I think he wrote down the statement and he just read it. If I was a lawyer and I was advising him, I would not tell him to say the things he said. I would tell him to keep that private and bring it up in court. But they decided to say it. And by saying it, there's pretty much mutual defamation going on. Now, I'm saying mutual defamation because somebody is telling the truth and somebody is not telling the truth, or perhaps both parties may be fabricating certain periods. Once again, I'm taking a neutral stance. I don't know. I have a bias based on my observations. I think Emmy is the more credible one so far. But from a neutral, taking out those non-legal observations, the defamation is there somewhere. Somebody is defaming somebody, so they need to speak to lawyers and get on top of that. So let's talk about Emmy first. I watched all of these videos. I sat today and watched all 3 hours of videos, including Asmongold's reaction to them. Shout out to the Roach King. I did think her presentation, once again, was very credible. And she also brought some receipts. She had the text messages, which was much more credible than the evidence that was brought by Mizkif, showing some random video of what could be any single rabbit's enclosure, or not even a rabbit. It could be another animal. Who knows? There was no rabbit in the actual video. That is very questionable. And it certainly does not, quote unquote, prove anything. And proving stuff online and social media really doesn't get you any points if you get hit with a restraining order, if you get with criminal, certain criminal sanctions, criminal penalties might happen there, or civil liability. That's not going to protect you. So I think she did a good job of presenting it. I know it was troubling. I know she was sick, but overall presentation by Emmy was good. So what are the main allegations in the criminal stuff and civil stuff I focused on? First, there's blackmail and coercion. So that is the aspect where if you go and speak out about a relationship, which is at the key here, and say bad things, etc., I am going to drop the rabbits, and we're going to get into the rabbits when we get into Mizkif, but I'm going to coerce you into not speaking. This is a problem for several reasons. One of which, once again, is these people were coworkers working at the same, under the same umbrella. There's a lot of issues when you're trying to coerce and blackmail a coworker. This can become a broader workplace issue. We know OSHA, right, guys? Real easy to submit that OSHA report. Not looking good on that, especially in Texas, under Texas law. There's also under Texas law, assault family violence. Now, understand this is domestic assault in Texas. That's how they brand it. And remember, assault is not actually striking somebody. It's actually just causing fear of imminent harm. So by punching holes in the wall and by doing other acts of violence, that could be construed as assault family violence. Once again, you don't need to be married for that. You can be a roommate, a boyfriend, etc. In Texas, that can fly. Now, there could also be sexual assault, maybe. Now, I'm very careful about this because we are, of course, in I don't want to say post-Me Too era, but I want to be very, very, very clear. We have at this point, a he said, she said story. Very difficult to prove those and very difficult to litigate those. Also, based on the factors, it seemed like, there was consent at one point, which was withdrawn. Okay, you let him kiss you, and then he jumped on top of you, said no, he got off. So there's some potential. Could it be essay? Yes, it could be. Could a court look at that? Once again, I'm taking a very neutral legal perspective. Could a court look at that and say that's not essay? Also possible, right? So both of those scenarios, very, very possible there, but she could still try. She could still try to bring that claim. And I think that's the trouble for Mizkif, is that whether or not this is something that would ultimately be adjudicated guilty, being on trial for sexual assault does not look good for your career. There's also intentional infliction of emotional distress. It definitely seems on a civil side like that is a clear thing here. He was trying to afflict her with emotional distress. She seems distraught. She seems to have damages. She seems to have mental suffering and mental health from that, which is a very real thing. And I think she could bring that claim. So these allegations, once again, they are very serious, but I want to stress this, and this is the point which I want to get to Emmy if she's listening to this. Emmy, you need to make sure you're taking official action. Now, I know you're getting a restraining order, and that's good. A restraining order is a good first step. But understand, your restraining order may be limited to just his physical presence. Okay, he physically can't come near you. Now, some courts are willing to issue a digital restraining order saying he can't talk about you online. That's a little bit more problematic, maybe not constitutional. Some courts will do it, some won't, might be overthrown. But what really should happen is a police report here of some kind, maybe EEOC, OSHA. Once again, they were working together. This could be a situation in which this was bleeding over into her work. And once again, what was key to her testimony, what was key to her talking about, not testimony yet, but her statements. Her statements were, I was streaming this, I was playing a tank in WoW, or I was streaming this game, and he was jealous and made me stop. That's a workplace issue. That's saying, hey, look, they're dating, they were coworkers, right? Working under the same umbrella legally. There you go. I mean, once again, seems problematic. A reason why you don't date your coworkers. These sort of things will happen with any relationship that's botched. And let me just mention that the majority of relationships fail. So once you factor in that the majority of relationships, just dating casually, are going to fail, you are gambling on a game that you're going to lose. It's a stupid thing to do. Now, listen, Have people done stupid things? Yes. Have people dated coworkers in the past? Yes. Look, I'm no saint over here saying it doesn't happen. But what I'm saying is it's a bad idea. It's a very bad idea. Beyond that, you could also do a civil lawsuit. And that's the thing I think would be most fruitful. Now, defamation might be difficult because you have to expose everything. And that's why I don't push defamation right away. I don't think Emmy should jump to defamation. I think she should start with something else like filing a police report, a workplace claim, or IIED, intentional infliction of emotional distress. With that, you're going to be able to go after Mizkif. You're going to be able to get his messages, text messages, etc., depose people that talk to him. I think that would be a smarter move than perhaps going after defamation, but it's up to her and her lawyers and what they decide. Now, let's talk about Mizkif over here and this lovely, lovely fellow. I found that what he did was soulless and really just reading off a statement that obviously was prepared. He admitted that, but was not screened, filtered, or really considered harshly. Throwing a plushie or a blanket is not going to get a girl hit with a assault charge or a battery charge. I'm sorry. That's not going to come to counter punching a wall, right? Those are not equivalent things. And perhaps I'm a little bit more hardened by this, growing up in South Florida, having one or two sandals thrown at me at some point, the chancleta. But that said, a plushie is not going to be that critical hit that takes you out. I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. I don't know how soft you are, how much soy you've had for dinner, but that is not going to get a police officer in Texas to go slap some cuffs on Emmy and drag her to the police station. That's not going to happen. And the fact that he thought his big bullet, his silver bullet, was those rabbits, is a joke. Now, animal cruelty is a crime. And so the thing he messed up on is he's accused her of a crime. So if she did not do that, that is clear defamation. So Emmy now has a claim, in addition to the IED, a clear defamation case saying, hey, you are now accusing me of a crime, animal cruelty, right? Killing the rabbits, right? That is not okay. And here's my thing for Mizkif. Mizkif, bro, if you are so dead set on saying the rabbits are a problem, why didn't you report it to animal control or the local, whatever the local authority is that oversees animal safety and health in your region, right? We talked about Hassan, Collargate. We all know about Collargate, and I helped out on Twitter, on X. I put out the information to contact the local animal services. So why didn't you contact animal services? If it's such a big deal, bro, where's the report to animal services? Let's see it. Show me the Carfax. Oh, you didn't do that. You just want to talk about it for internet clout. You just want to get people on your side. You want to bring up, your mental health as a defense, which isn't a joke. Mental health is a very serious thing, and people using it as a shield really undermines those that have legitimate mental health conditions. And it seems he may have even inflicted Emmy with a mental health condition, which would strengthen her IIED claim. So he really hasn't reported it. And beyond that, if it was under his roof, he might also be liable for it. So that is not really a defense. So if you're keeping animals on your premise and they are abused, you might be liable for that. If you're the co-tenant at an apartment or a house and you are jointly leasing that or jointly renting that, you're liable for that. It's under your roof. It's happening there. So that is not the legal bombshell he thinks it is. Now, if Emmy was lying about everything she said, which once again, I'm not saying she is, I'm just throwing out a hypothetical. If she was lying, then there would be a clear defamation case. Then he could clearly bring a defamation case. However, I don't think he wants all of the messages, text messages, emails, etc., to be obtained through subpoena if he files defamation. And I think this strategy of leaking information not only could constitute blackmail, but it's idiotic, it's childish, and once again, it's not official. None of this is actually official. It's just meant to try to destroy her character, destroy her reputation, which once again would just add to her damages if she ever tries to sue you, even for something like IIED. In fact, leaking information to damage someone's reputation, especially very personal information, that very much could be considered intentional infliction of emotional distress. And so what I'm thinking with Mizkif and his absolute mockery of a counter is that you should be very concerned and lawyer up. And at this point, Emmy has a procedural, social, and evidentiary advantage based on what we've seen so far. Mizkif definitely needs a legal counter or he's in trouble. So at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Mizkif throw a lawsuit out there as a last-ditch gambit, as something, even Emmy said, a slap lawsuit, etc. Throw out some sort of lawsuit, which may be dismissed as it's filed, but it still would be a measure to try to stop this or cut back on this. We'll see what happens with that. A restraining order by itself is not going to be enough to end this dispute and is not going to be enough to put this to bed. There needs to be some other sort of action that's taken against whoever is responsible, once again being fair and neutral, likely Mizkif, right? But we don't know right now. There needs to be some sort of action officially taken with the police, EOC, OSHA, civil lawsuit, something to close the chapter on this and to find out what exactly was going on and to get all those details out there. But I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. Who do you think is in the right on this one? I know it's probably people are thinking Emmy based on most of the polls, but let me know in the comments below and I'll catch you on